there is a certain kind of violence that I absolutely will not condone, and it is this kind of violence. This is the kind of the cover-up of what was clearly violence, terrorism, that is a long legacy in the South. That is something I do not condone. I'm so tired of hearing about Charlie Kirk and like seeing his wife holding embalmed hands. I'm so tired of that story when this is the story that needs to be getting a lot of attention. So this is really not my usual content, but as someone who grew up in the South, in Nashville, Tennessee, I don't live there anymore. I haven't lived there since I was 18. But I go and visit still, and most of my family's still there. And I know this environment. And by this environment, I just mean white people in the South and the long legacy of terrorism towards Black people from the states, from individuals, from groups like the Triple K, which is now probably going to be getting more and more outright in their audacity, and I'm sure want to return to the Jim Crow era of just terrorizing at every chance. And a lot of the people in those groups are the police who are investigating and, coming to quick conclusions that, Trey Reed would do that on the campus with broken arms to himself on a campus. It also doesn't surprise me because we know the history. Well, actually, when I say we, I did not learn this in school, right? Even the history of the police in the United States and, slave patrols. I didn't know about any of that. I had to leave Tennessee and pursue a history degree in Montana to find out anything about my history because we don't talk about it. Maybe some people talk about it if they're actively in those groups, but all like the ancestors of the children of people who were really into that, if they're not into it, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want you to know that your grandpa was in it or that your grandma was in it and sewing things. They don't want you to know that maybe they were taken to rallies themselves. They don't want to talk about it. And so many white Southerners do not know our history. Or just know a really warped, messed up version of it. And part of that is because of women like this, the daughters of the Confederacy, who literally rewrote history. All of these dumb statues everywhere of that for a hot minute, I thought we were getting rid of them, right? But now all these forkers are wanting to put them back up. Daughters of Confederacy are behind all those statues. Those were like a newer thing. Those have not been around since the Civil War. Daughters of Confederacy also. This is white women. We are this is never going to stop without us stopping, enabling the violence of the state. If we're not doing the violence ourselves, like our ancestors were, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Reed, they were her property. Okay, if we aren't doing the actual violence ourselves, we are calling the state to do our violence for us. We are inciting violence, right? Or we're doing it this way by literally rewriting history and then just changing the books in schools. Because I did not learn about, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word. You can't talk about the terror without getting flagged and your videos banned. You can't talk about, you have to say grape. You have to say all these words. So I don't know, maybe you can't say it. I'm not sure. I just don't want this video to get flagged. I wasn't taught about any of the true history of my ancestors, right? I had to leave the state to find that out. And once I was like, oh my God, I've been lied to about literally everything. Then, I've been in a process of a journey for the last 24 years? No, 23 years of wanting to learn more and more and more of the real history, not this whitewashed lies. Not even whitewashed, outright just lies, straight up lies, not even just bending the truth, but just straight up lies. And the white women ancestors of my people in the South rewrote all the books. And I'm not just making this up. This is documented. You could look, there's many articles about this. They rewrote history. These books made it. One of my friends who grew up in California didn't learn about lynching. Didn't learn about it. Their reach was huge. I'm Gen X, and these books were still in the schools when I was learning this stuff, because I promise you, I did not learn most of the stuff that is the most critical part of our history to understand why we are where we are and why we can't get past it. It's like somebody who refuses to go to therapy to talk about their past, even if they're like trying to start a new life, and they will not deal with the past. They don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to move. But you don't know what is motivating your actions. You don't know what is driving your behavior. You don't know that you've been swimming in the water of white supremacy and patriarchy and all these systems unless you take a look at it and figure it and like learn. And there's so much to learn. I'll never know all of it. I'm going to die not knowing all my history probably, but I'm going to try. I am trying. I want to know the truth. And so white people in the South are doing what they've always done. They've lied about everything. Now they have to hide things more. They don't have to be as bold, but now they can be getting bolder, right? But I just want to tell you an example of what it is like still in the South. For anybody who's ever been to Nashville, you may have seen this statue. This is on the side of the interstate, right on I-65, right here. Okay, Creve Hall and whatever, Oak Creek or whatever. Every time I go home, I would go by, you have to drive by this thing all the time. It is on like the major, like there's 65 and there's 40 and there's 24. And you are going to use those interstates all the time in the U.S. in Nashville. And if you go anywhere south of Nashville, you're going to be on 65 and you're going to probably pass this thing. This is Nathan Bedford Forrest, the guy who started the Triple K. And then all these flags are, various southern state flags or whatever. I'm also going to tell you a couple examples of just work, like what it's like working even in North Florida I'm going to tell you that in a second. Let me finish this up because I don't think, first of all, it's not just the South, okay? This is all over the U.S. But it is more outright in the South, and it is just there, like the South in the southeastern U.S. The South is like, it's like the ground zero for the most horrific shit we've ever done in our country. That is where the worst stuff happened. Although, the genocide of it happened right out of the gate all over the U.S. But in addition to that, then we have chattel slavery. And for so long, it has not been that long ago. And then Jim Crow. And then now, the prison industrial complex, like it just keeps going. It's just repackaged. But so this is all over the U.S. And you will find, one of my friends in New York, in like a hippie town in New York, showed me like they redid their bathroom and found a whole wall had been from the previous owner, a Confederate flag. The Yankees got them flags, what? And so they were redoing the whole bathroom because they wanted this thing out of, it was tiles. Okay, so, and it could try going to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. When I lived in Montana, boy, did I learn a lot about Idaho. So I think it's easy to be like, the South is so messed up and the rest of the country is not. But no, but I am saying that because of have you seen Sinners? Trying to explain, like, I watched Sinners with my husband when we went back to the U.S. this summer, and we watched it in Orlando. And him and I talked for 3 hours after that movie because he got it, but he didn't understand some of the specific historical context of the movie. And we talked for 3 hours because I was trying to explain, like, there's so much history, horrific history in the South that nobody teaches outright to white people. It's no, like, it's all good, it's all fine, rah. Meanwhile, it is rampant, right? And then you have stuff like this where you have a statue that is on the side of the major interstate. Anybody going south in Nashville, south of downtown Nashville, has to pass this forking statue. And up until, I think, 2020, this 25-foot statue of Nathan Bedford Forrest was right there. And it's horrifying. And this guy, just so you know, thought that chattel slavery was social security for African. Like that, how they could be so loud and so wrong with no shame whatsoever. It was designed by this guy who went to Vanderbilt University, okay, like Ivy League, co-founder of the League of the South, which is a white nationalist supremacist group. They're all parts of all these groups. Like, luckily, this guy just died who owned this property because he just left it up to terrorize people. When he died, he left $5 million to his dog. Lulu. And they finally got rid of it. He finally, in December 7th, 2021, that statue was removed. And I had no idea this statue was so famous. It has been in so many papers. It's been mocked extensively. The Slate called it the Confederacy's dumbest monument. Because this is actually the dude. And this is the statue. Okay? This is the worst statue. It's like some of the people were like, is this trolling or is this like celebrating because it's such a bad statue? But this old dude just insisted on leaving it up. And what pisses me off is because it was on this like sliver. See, this is that quote I was talking about. Because it was on this sliver of like private land or whatever, this guy could leave it up and terrorize the whole town, the whole city. Having a statue of the guy who started the Triple K. Every year I went home, I was like, is that it still up? Yes. Every year I went home, I was like, what the fuck? And now they don't know what to do with it. Like, they don't know. Anyway, this guy was so stubborn. He was like, people were trying to plant trees in front of it. They were trying to do anything to just cover it up, to get this statue out of the view of the public. I have no idea what it would be like to be black driving by that statue. I can't imagine. But to me, that would be like having an enormous, like, swastika or whatever, and all of the flags right on the interstate being like, this is where you are now. This is mountain country. And so that's just a statue. But I also wanted to share a couple stories just to give you an idea. This stuff is not far long ago. This, like, sundown towns still exist. This isn't just like sinners. You know, they still exist. Wasn't that Green Book movie? Like, this still exists. Right? And anybody black watching my video knows this, at least in this, if you're from the US. But I don't know if white people know this. I don't know if they care. I don't know if they know this and celebrate it. I would hope not. But let me just give you an example. So I worked for a backpacking company, and we operated in the north. They operate all over the country and maybe even all over the world. They have different kinds of programs. It's usually like 1, 2, 3 weeks, and maybe some of them are a few months of backpacking trips. And they're not like the carceral kind where they like kidnap people and like whatever. This was not a carceral. And when I was an instructor in New Hampshire and Vermont, one of my co-instructors was telling me what it was like to work for a branch in North Florida. Now, I have family in Florida, in North Florida actually, but they're around a university, so it's more like hippie. But North Florida is the deep South. And so these trips were going through the Everglades, and a lot of the kids, because some of the kids sometimes it's rich kids doing this. Sometimes it's they have some scholarships, and then sometimes some kids are court ordered to be there for, like drug rehabilitation kind of thing, as like an alternative to going to, juvie or whatever. They send them backpacking for a couple weeks, but it is not the kind where they take your shoes and stuff like that. I don't believe. I don't know. I didn't work for this branch, but the ones out in Utah and all over that like literally like kidnap people, like that's not what they did. The kids were never kidnapped. But in the Everglades, my coworker was telling me, he's from like Boston. He had no idea what it's like down south, right? And a lot of their kids were black, right? Because of racism. And just being targeted by the police all the time. And they would paddle. The Everglades is huge. I don't ever want to go to the Everglades. I can't imagine being in a swamp it's beautiful, I hear, but alligators and all kinds of stuff. And it's an epic trip, from my understanding, and it's months long. And one of the scariest part was not the alligators and all of the poisonous spiders and the mosquitoes that, torture you. It is the racists, right? He told me that they would paddle past yards that had they paddled past a yard that had a burning cross in it. Because all the people who live in that community around who didn't want them there made sure to let them know they didn't want them there. And at one point in time, the sheriff pulled them over and had a shotgun pointed at them and talking to them like this. Luckily, the instructor was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white dude from Boston, although the Boston part probably did not help him because, Southern people hate Yankees. When I would wait tables at, Ruby Tuesdays in Nashville, I got accused of being a Yankee. You Yankee? I was like, no. I was born and raised here. I just watched a lot of TV. That's why I don't have a Southern accent. They hate Yankees, but whatever. So this probably didn't help him. But he was a white dude. And the sheriff was like, you get these boys out of here. You get them out of here before the sun goes down because I can't protect you. This guy had so many horrific stories of just canoeing. These are kids with a backpack and a canoe. They're teenagers. And these sundown towns terrorized them. They had to keep changing courses to deal with racists, right? And that's the thing about the woods. I didn't realize until I worked for this company in New York City and we did backpacking trips, and there was a lot of the kids on my course were from the Bronx. They were so scared of white people in the woods. They were not scared of bears. They weren't scared of insects. They weren't scared of anything. They were scared of running into white people in the woods. On the Appalachian Trail, anybody who's hiked the Appalachian Trail, there's terrifying men if you're a woman, and then if you're a black woman, or if you're a black person on the Appalachian Trail, I can't imagine how scary that is, right? Because the woods, there's just racists all over, but it is more normalized and accepted and a part of a legacy in southern towns. These are the people who were terrorizing little black girls trying to go to school when they were integrating. These people are not old. They're alive, and they have decades left. Maybe not decades, but they're alive and well. So this there's no way. There is no way that when you see a news story, especially in the South, that is not investigated, and it is a suicide, please don't ever believe without those headlines. Please do not believe the conclusions the cops come to. If the family comes to that conclusion, the family of that person comes to that conclusion, okay. But if anybody else comes to that conclusion, assume it is terrorism. Assume it is from the state, from an individual, from a group, but it was not self-inflicted. Please, please, please don't let this story get buried by all this crap about this freaking guy in Utah. Okay? Please. And if you don't know the history of the United States and you're brand new to this, I highly suggest People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. They were her property. A lot of public historians like Tad Stromer, a lot of them are on TikTok. There's so many resources. I can put them in the comments if you think of any great book, especially if you're for people who are newer to this work. Hell, even this book, Emotional Labor, has a great history of the exploitation of black labor. And of course, Tammy's book, The Empathy Gap.